I was just calling because, like, I came out to my parents like a few months ago, like in December, and
Okay.
most of my family has basically accepted it, and they disagree with me and whatnot, but that's fine. But it seems when I somehow in some way disagree with my dad, it doesn't always go very well. And tonight there was such a disagreement happened where it wasn't even religious, but it was just, you're disagreeing with me on this subject. You must be a filthy liberal, something like that. And and alcohol was involved. I just need to say that. So
it often is. I've actually had
I've
actually had more productive conversations with my family when we've all had a drink. It sort of depends on the person, I suppose.
I'm a very lovey drunk.
Yeah,
but
well, no, I mean, you know better than
I'm
do
pretty sure everybody.
family.
Yeah, Andre, that sucks, man. And you know the thing is, a lot of these conversations, you know, that people call in with when we disagree, we have the luxury of not ever having to talk to them again. And because of that, we don't necessarily need to, you know, be as restrained. And when you have family who's difficult like that, it can be tough because sometimes you can feel like you're the only person who's being considerate in the room. And I'm sorry that you've got to deal with that. But I absolutely have had conversations like that with people I love. And to date, I don't know of any way to change somebody's mind who doesn't want to be changed, but just to move forward with empathy and compassion, because it's hard for someone to be mad at somebody else who is acting in a caring, loving, compassionate way. You know?
Yes.
You know, be exactly the good person that you are. And you can start to show, especially if you're being identified as the filthy, liberal, godless heathen, then why don't you, you know, go do some good? Because it's going to throw them for a loop. And no matter what, whether it changes...
He knows exactly what kind of a good person I am. Sorry for interrupting. He knows I'm a good person, and he knows I do a lot of good, and I've done a lot of good things that he will definitely acknowledge as something that he would consider to be very good. It's just that, the disagreements like tonight, it escalated to the point where he threatened to break my nose and throw me out of the house.
So do you
and it's only when alcohol is involved.
Then.
So have you had conversations with him where alcohol is not involved about this?
Yes, and it's usually a lot easier, but he's still very stubborn, and he holds his positions with like very hard-headedly.
Yeah, I mean that's.
Well, you're definitely entitled to be able to say, "Hey, I don't want to have this conversation when you're under the influence."
You're also entitled to say, "Hey, you know, if this is going to cause a rift between me and my father to the point where potentially violence and shattering, you know, or splitting a family is going to occur, then I think that, I mean, I can't make the decisions for you, but I think that at that point there's a question of what your goal is, because, you know, I don't want to split from my family, and I don't want my family to split from me, and that's one of the things I consider when I'm thinking about what kind of conversations to have with them, right? There are very explicit details of my life that I don't bring up in conversation, right? Like they don't need to know how many times I go to the bathroom, and it would be weird if I brought that up all the time. And depending on how insistent I was about it, it might cause a rift in the family, and so I don't. And so for me, what I do, volunteering here and atheism, it's not in the same category because there's value to talking about it, but I feel okay not bringing it up and not having those conversations all the time because, you know, there are other conversations that we don't have. And I think if you think about it in that context, it becomes more palatable to either have or not have those conversations.
And the other side of it that I would like to address is if you are experiencing that, that is called, you know, it is a kind of abuse.
Yeah.
And it's a kind of abuse that it is an abuse that there are some amazing support groups for. Then I'd highly suggest you take a look at them, because there are techniques and tactics for being able to communicate in an effective way in those kinds of situations.
Yes, I was thinking of street epistemology as one way.
Yeah. Well, I'm specifically talking about.
And what actually on that point, really,
family members of people who are abusive, and people in relationships with people who are abusive.
Yeah.
You know, you said this is not just about the atheist conversation. And what I would say to you, Andre, is you're worth more than that. You don't deserve it.
Yes, I understand. My dad really loves me, and he's really proud of me and what I've become, not the atheist part and the liberal part, but it's just now this is the caveat. He's not an abusive person. It's just,
Andre,
I think something inside him snapped. I don't know.
Andre, those can all be true things.
Yeah.
And this person can have done something abusive.
Yeah. I'd like to say that I don't think that Eric is saying your father is in general an abusive person.
Yes.
I think he's saying that.
I'm not taking it like that.
No. Okay.
And I'm obviously a little defensive, but I'm
of
also...
Of course. You love him and you care.
You love your family.
Yeah, but I do recognize that you're just talking about the abusive that's happened now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
so what I will say is there's an app, the Atheist app, that sort of is a kind of training and practice for street epistemology. It's really great. And one of the ones on the sort of first level of the cave is, what should you do if this is the response, right? And one of those is the hypothetical thing you've been told is, shut up or I'm going to punch you in the nose. And the response that the app advises is not to continue the conversation and potentially to remove yourself from the situation, because being punched in the face for a conversation that doesn't need to happen is not a choice I could ever really see myself, or not advice I could ever see myself giving. I think so.
But hopefully that kind of gives a little bit of help. It's shitty, man. Big hug from Austin. We're thinking about you.
All right, man. Thanks, guys. And I really appreciate the advice and the little talk.
I appreciate you. And
thanks for calling in.
Yeah, I did have something else, but I don't think it's relevant. It's just that my girlfriend's also a creationist. But if you don't want to go into that, if you want to go to other callers, I'm fine with that.
So that is something we would take a good amount of time on.
But what I will say is, before you have children, that is something that can't be unaddressed when you have a kid.
Yes.
However, there's 20 different ways to go forward from that when it's just you and her, which is not solid advice.
Yeah, I think she and I has come to an agreeable position regarding children, but my father hasn't. My father wants to be involved in ways that I don't think would be productive.
Yeah. Well, if you have children, you are that child's parent, and ultimately...
Yes, I do realize, yes.
Yeah, that doesn't make it easier. Family is tricky, but yeah. Well, in any case, we appreciate the call, and, you know, it's worth saying, while you're, this call will, hopefully our advice has helped you, and probably listening to this call will help other people. Yes. So if it helps you feel a little bit, better about your situation, you are helping.
Yep. And
yourself and others.
David H. in the live chat said that setting up boundaries with your dad on these topics, if you know where the hot spots are, can really help.
That's a good idea, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good pick from the live chat. Mm-hmm. But you take care, buddy. It was good talking to you.
All right, thanks, guys. See you. Or
well,
have
take
a
care.
Good night.
Hey, yeah.
Yeah. I was also looking in the live chat, and people were, saying that I kind of jumped on the abuse wagon pretty quickly.
Well, to be clear, it's a good wagon to address.
It is, and even if that's not the case, when somebody does, that, it's definitely worth being aware of because
there's nothing wrong with having the information about abusive actions before the abusive actions occur.
And also to recognize that your worth is so much more. And having been in some abusive relationships, I can say that it's very easy to make a bunch of excuses, having seen those kinds of things. And I'm not saying that this is the case for him. It could very well be that it was just a bad night, and that's fine. But we don't just have conversations with people who are calling. We have conversations to address issues that everybody's watching. And if that helped somebody, to kind of go, oh, wait, maybe I'm making up an excuse. Well, maybe I'm making up an excuse for somebody who is doing something that is generally seen as unexcusable. Maybe that helps, and maybe that's worth it. But I absolutely see that, one bad night does not a relationship of abuse make. So
or abusive relationship make.